Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Kumar from Authentic Journeys. Today, I want to talk about making eye contact with U.S. Americans in face-to-face and in virtual environments. Now, I totally understand that as I make this video in May 2020, travel is not really happening right now. Even going from your house to a local office may not be happening right now, let alone traveling domestically or internationally to seek clients or stakeholders. However, we will build the momentum again. So I want to make this video to help gain some context to this topic. So I want to talk about this topic of eye contact, both in a face-to-face environment and a virtual environment. So when we talk about face-to-face environment, I'm not going to talk anything about our proxemics. Proxemics is how close we stand together. Now, this will probably change because of social distancing, even once we get back to the office. Americans already tend to stand further apart from each other and give each other more personal space than, say, people from India or China or other countries. But even once we go back to the office after social distancing continues and the lockdown is ended, even maybe in places like India or China where the proxemics or the personal space was low, maybe it will become more. And in a place like Utah, where I'm in the US, we already stand pretty far apart, and I can only imagine it might become even more. So we're not actually going to talk about how far apart to stand. That's a totally different topic that's going to change, I would surmise, because of, this whole COVID lockdown and social distancing. I'm just going to talk about eye contact, because we can make eye contact regardless of how far we are standing away from each other or how close we are standing to each other. So in the US context, there are three types of, general ways of making eye contact, you could say. And I'm actually kind of taking this from communication textbooks, and I'm looking away. I'm telling you I'm looking away because I just wanted to bring up an image on my phone so that I have it as a guideline when I'm talking to you today. So there are three types of gazes or eye contact guidelines we could kind of utilize or use as a benchmark when interacting with people from the US. And this might also translate into interacting with people from Canada or other Western countries where eye contact is a respected type of interaction, and it builds trust and credibility. So as I go through each one, first I'm going to ask you, where on the face do you think this gaze or this type of eye contact would happen? And then I'll tell you the answer, and then I'll give you some ideas or tips around this, okay? So the first is called a business gaze. A business gaze. Where on the face do you think we would make eye contact with someone and it would be considered a business gaze? Here, 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 here. Where on the face do you think? Now, we have this kind of phrase called the Bermuda Triangle. You might have heard of it. It's in the ocean somewhere where, people kind of get lost, and it's on the map. If you look at it, it looks like a triangle. And we use this phrase kind of as an idiom to say anything that has 3 points that you can get lost in. So the Bermuda Triangle that the communication experts have created for the business gaze starts in the middle of your forehead, works down to one eye, comes over to your other eye, and then back up to the middle of your forehead. So, it's a very kind of narrow place. What do you think about that? What do you think about this triangle of business gaze? So normally when I train people on this and we're in a training room, I have people actually try to make this gaze with other people. Most people find it very uncomfortable. And honestly, even Americans, I don't think in the US we actually just really focus on this triangle, so to speak. I would expand this to more of an oval. So any place like, from the top of the forehead all the way around to the, under your eyes, under the eyes, and then to the base of the nose. So anything in this area could be considered, a business gaze. Now, when we are looking at the other person in that part of their face, We do not stare into their eyes. We do not open our eyes wide like this and stare. Right? We don't do that. Nobody will do that actually, unless they're probably nervous or whatever. And the other thing we don't want to do is like look away, like shifting our eyes like this way, or even moving our head when we're shifting our eyes. We kind of keep our head in one place. And yeah, we can look away sometimes or look down, but we don't want that look to kind of happen all the time. Like I'm talking to you and then I'm looking away and then I'm not really looking at you when I'm talking. I'm just looking around this way and that way. And then I'm telling you about my business and what we do and how we can work with you and how we can have a partnership and all of this stuff. And I'm not actually looking at you. We don't want that. They call that shifty eyes, shifty. And this word shifty has a kind of idiomatic meaning, which means like not trustworthy. So we don't want that for you. We don't want that to happen when you come to the US, or if you're already in the US traveling around and you're an expat, you're not really sure how this whole eye contact business works in the US. We don't want to have you go in with that kind of impression. So kind of look, you can look and make eye contact into the person's eyes. We're not staring into the eyes. We can kind of look around the face a little bit and kind of look around a little bit, but we don't want to shift our eyes back and forth. We don't want to move our head a lot. We don't want to use a lot of, gestures with our face and our head in the US. So like if you're talking to someone, you're not going to use your head while you're talking to point at something usually, especially in a business environment. Although I've seen that in other countries. We're not very animated when it comes to that, as other cultures might be. So that's the business gaze. Now, the second one is called the social gaze. The social gaze. Where do you think on the face we're making the social gaze? So the business gaze was up here. Where is the social gaze? So we just move it down. So actually the Bermuda Triangle, so to speak, of the social gaze starts kind of, at one eye, moves over to the other eye, comes down till here, and then comes back up. I find that triangle much more uncomfortable than the one up here. Try looking at someone in the face just between the two eyes and the, bridge of the nose or the top of the mouth. It's a very strange, kind of location. And it could make someone very uncomfortable. I've expanded this to an oval as well. Something more like, from the top of the eyebrows, not the eyes itself, but the eyebrows all the way down to like maybe, the mouth or maybe even the top of the chin. So you kind of got the most of the face there. That's the social gaze. And just like with the business gaze, when we're making eye contact, we want to have, a soft look. We don't want to open our eyes too much and we don't want to squint. Just normal kind of, sometimes blinking, looking around. Blink normally. Don't try to count your blinks, 10 blinks a minute. No, nothing like that. Just a normal, way of blinking is fine. Because you have to blink your eyes because it waters your eyes, right? So you have to blink. Naturally, we do it without even thinking. So just keep that behavior. No need to really be, too conscious about how often that you're blinking and things like that. So when do we make the social gaze? And do we make it in the office? Yes, we make the social gaze in the office, and the situations are like when we're making small talk, when we, obviously not when you're first starting the first interaction with a client. That's still going to be more formal gaze, more business gaze, even if we are making small talk. But let's say, now you've been in the office a couple of times, you go out for coffee, tea, lunch, and you're making small talk. Okay, social gaze makes more sense. We make a social gaze during a beginning of the meeting or times in meetings where we're making a small talk, so to speak. Or we're, kind of getting off the topic of the actual meeting. We can make more of a social gaze. When you go out to lunch or dinner or even sometimes breakfast with your U.S. counterparts, this would be considered more of a time to make a social gaze. Now, in the U.S., one thing you do have to keep in mind that meetings, business meetings can take place over, a meal. This is not very common in other cultures. People would not maybe always, want to do business over food or drinks for that matter. But in the US, people do that. They will actually set out a time period and, okay, everyone, we're having a breakfast meeting on Mondays at 9 o'clock. Everyone come in, they will bring food and share it like bagels or fruits or yogurt and coffee and all that stuff. And people will actually sit around the meeting table eating while having the meeting. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about eating habits during a meeting. That's a totally different topic. Here, I'm talking more about only eye contact. So, obviously, when picking up the food from the buffet table or talking to the waiter or getting your drinks or whatever, obviously, that will be more of a social gaze. But once the meeting starts and you're actually talking about business topics, then we switch more over to the business gaze. Now, actually, the business gaze and the social gaze happen even in our personal lives. Like parents, when they're scolding their kids or they want to be more serious, they would tend to look more in the top of the head where, they're just hanging out with their kids and playing, basketball or going for a hike. Okay, this part of the face. Unless like the kid is going near the cliff, then the parent will, don't go near the cliff. I told you more than once, young boy. Don't go near that cliff. So then the eye contact becomes more serious when the situation calls for it, basically. So these are the first two gazes, business gaze and social gaze. I told you there were three. The third is called intimate gaze. Intimate gaze. What do you think on the face we make an intimate gaze? See, this one is a little tricky. So the intimate gaze they're saying it starts at the eyes and kind of goes down the front of the body. I would agree with that. Do not use this gaze at all, ever in the office. It can get you in trouble. It can get you checked for harassment. We don't want that, right? So do not use the intimate gaze in the office. We only really use it like maybe with our partners, maybe like our spouses or boyfriends, girlfriends, something like that, but not in the office. Intimate gaze, no way. Don't look down the front of a person. Just don't go there. Okay, it's not going to get you any points with anyone. It will take your points away. It will actually get you in people's bad books. So stick to the business gaze or the social gaze. Okay, so I went through the three gazes for face-to-face interactions. Now virtual. Now virtual is where we all are right now, right? For the last 2 or 3 months, depending on where you are in the world. You probably might be feeling zoomed out. I'm making that up, although the actual term I've heard in articles is Zoom fatigue. And although we're using the word Zoom, it's basically for any digital, medium where you're going to be on a video. And people are feeling this because, before the COVID lockdown, okay, you might have had a couple virtual meetings a week, maybe with your colleagues, or sometimes you had a video chat, FaceTime with your family. But we could mix that with actual face-to-face interactions, like where we're meeting other people and going to the office, going to our, church or synagogue or our holy place and meeting people, or, wherever, going to the store and meeting people. Even that now we're not doing much, right? Some people aren't doing it at all, depending on where you're living in the world. But now every single interaction is over some kind of a digital platform, even if it's just typing in a WhatsApp. So people are getting exhausted because work is making them do, a lot of digital interactions, a lot of video calls. And then, even with their family, they have to do Zoom calls to see people. Maybe they're also having church or some kind of, religious services online. Some of these events that used to be free in the community, like here in Salt Lake City, we have free concerts downtown, like on Wednesdays and Fridays. They're putting that online too now, so you can go to Zoom or Facebook Live and see that. So like everything is in a digital platform. So people are exhausted because it's a different way of interacting. But nonetheless, we have to know how to make eye contact in a virtual space. So normally when I'm talking to you, I'm looking into the tiny camera on top of the screen. And I try to have, my camera set up in such a way that like, it looks like, I'm facing the camera and it's not like I'm looking, down up into the camera, or I'm looking kind of down into the camera. We don't want any of that, right? we want to have kind of a nice distance from the camera so that we can actually look into the camera. And make it look like we're looking at the person on the other side. When making eye contact in a virtual space, we want to look into the camera. Now, I understand that there'll be, whoever else is in your meeting is going to be on the screen. So right now I'm looking at the screen at all of you who are watching this. There's actually nobody because I'm doing this video recording all by myself. But I'm looking at my own self on the video screen. So maybe you can tell that I'm not really looking at the camera right now. Now I'm looking at the camera. Did you notice anything different between me looking at the camera and me not looking at the camera? So my head moves a little bit differently, and my body position, I went down a little bit, like I kind of went down. I did that kind of on purpose, but sometimes I do that, and sometimes other people do that too, like subconsciously also move their body up and down. So it gives the impression you're not really looking at the other person. You're not really paying attention to that other person. Even though you obviously are, because you're actually paying more attention by looking at the screen and seeing them than if you're just looking in the camera. But the other person on the other side doesn't always get that impression. So you want to make sure your camera is facing you at a certain angle. Like right now it's facing me directly. Like I'm not having to look down into the camera, and I'm not having to look up into the camera or any of those weird things, or I'm not too close to the camera like this, or I'm not like way much to the side. Like you want to have a good body position too. That's really important. And the lighting helps. We're not going to get into that, but in general, you want to look into the camera, and you want to give the other people the impression you're looking at them, you know. And if you need to look away, this is where words come into the picture. Like I did earlier, I said, oh, sorry, I have to, you know, get something on my mobile phone for a cue for this talk. So that's going to be important, especially if you're facilitating or you're chairing a meeting or you're giving a presentation. You have to let the audience know that you're looking away. Just so they don't think you're suddenly like not paying attention to them, and they can like not pay attention to you. You don't want that. So you have to kind of keep giving a lot of cues. Now, if you turn off the video, obviously eye contact is not going to be an issue. But then some teams are, you know, starting a few minutes in the beginning with a video and ending a few minutes with video, just so people can see each other. But during the actual meeting, they turn off, you know, the video camera to kind of give people a time to relax. So in that time, obviously, eye contact is not so important, but how we express, you know, our interaction with people might be more important. Like saying things like, you know, oh yeah, I'm actually not going to talk for a couple minutes just because I have to kind of Google that, or I have to research that, or I have to, you know, look up that, you know, thing in our database, and it's just give me a few seconds while I do that. So you want to give people cues of why you're going to be quiet for a minute, so they don't kind of, you know, stop paying attention or think that, you know, the connection is lost, and everyone starts saying, are you there? Are you audible? Can you hear me? Can I hear you? Or that they actually disconnect to thinking that their connection is, you know, not stable, and then they kind of, you know, like just drop off the call and then have to come back in, which is okay. I mean, these things are going to happen, obviously, but some of the things we can do as presenter, facilitator, or person who's actually just leading the discussion at that time can do that. And, you know, help. This not only helps the others kind of get a context of what we're doing and how we're still trying to interact with them, but it is kind of a leadership skill. All communication skills are leadership skills. So these are just some tips on, you know, eye contact, both in face-to-face and virtual environments. I hope you found this helpful. And, you know, I do a lot of coaching around this. Right now, all my coaching is also virtual, and it has been for the last, you know, 2 or 3 years. And I understand there's going to be a lot of people who are zoomed out, and I totally appreciate that. We don't have to do it on video. We can turn the video off and just do it by voice if you prefer. But obviously, if you want to practice the eye contact part, we need the video on. So if you're like getting ready to do a demo with your client, or you're doing some kind of online presentation, maybe a sales presentation, webinar, whatever, you want to practice your presentation skills and your eye contact and how to get everything ready for that presentation, you can get in touch with us. Especially me. I do all the coaching, or at least 95% of it. My name is Jennifer Kumar, and I'm the managing director of Authentic Journeys, and I've worked with around 3,500 professionals just like you. Let me add you to the list, and you can get in touch with me by authenticjourneys.info is the website. Email is info@authenticjourneys.info. Phone number in the US, 315-218-0947. WhatsApp phone number, only WhatsApp because SIM doesn't work here in the US, but it's an Indian number for WhatsApp. 91 country code 95393-47529. Thanks for listening and have a great day. See you soon. And maybe I will actually see you. Make some kind of eye contact with you. Have a good rest of your day and bye-bye.